Tractate Beitzah, page 26b, top of the page, with the words B'yom Tov. Excuse me. B'yom Tov. Rabbi Shimon, Omer, Ein Zeh Min HaMuchan, V'shavin She'im Nolad Hu Umumo Imo, Shezeh Min HaMuchan. On the festival itself, Rabbi Shimon says it is not considered to be among the animals prepared prior to the festival for use on the festival. Therefore, even if it was examined by an expert, it may not be slaughtered. And Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon agreed that if the animal was born with its blemish, it is considered to be among the animals prepared for use on the festival. Darash Rabba Bar Rav Huna, Nolad Hu Umumo Imo, Mivakrin Oso B'yom Tov L'Chatchila. Amar L'Rav Nachman, Abatani Im Avad Ubikuro Mivukar V'at Amar Mivakrin Oso L'Chatchila. Rabbi Bar Rav Huna taught the halacha as follows: If a firstborn was born with its blemish, experts may examine it on the festival lechatchila, which means ab initio, to begin with. And if the blemish is found, what is going on here? The alarm went on again. This is not good. Nice. Shema lo chazor. Ma chazor. Lo chazor. Ma chazor. Ma chazor. Ma chazor. Ma chazor. Shema lo chazor. Shema lo ma chazor. Okay, where are we holding? Ab initio. If the blemish is found to be permanent, the animal then may be slaughtered. Rav Nachman said to him, Father would teach on this matter that if he transgressed and examined it, it is considered examined after the fact, like b'diavad, if he did already. Im avad ubikro. And you say that one may examine l'chatchila. Okay, Abaya said it stands to reason that the halacha is in accordance to the opinion of Rabba Bar Rav Huna from the fact that the Beitzah is taught in 3 parts, which suggests that each part contains a novel halacha. The first section states, if a firstborn developed a blemish on the eve of a festival, one may not examine it on the festival itself, from which one can learn that it is only ab initio that one may not examine it, but after the fact it seems well, and the examination is valid. The second section of the Beitzah states, if it developed a blemish on the festival itself, Rabbi Shimon said it is not considered to be among the animals prepared prior to the festival for use on the festival. In other words, even after the fact, no, if the animal was examined by an expert, it may not be slaughtered and eats it. And then, in the third section, it teaches, and Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon agree that if the animal was born with its blemish, it is considered to be among the animals prepared for use on the festival. The fact that the Beitzah taught this halacha is an independent clause indicates that even ab initio as well, the animal may be examined. The Gemara raises an objection, but isn't it so that when Rav Oshia came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia, he came and brought the following Beitzah in his hand, whether the animal developed a blemish. I find it very strange that there's specific usage of like he brought the Beitzah in his hand. I'm very curious about that. Whether the animal developed a blemish on the eve of the festival or it developed a blemish on the festival itself, the rabbis say it is not considered to be among the animals prepared for use on the festival, so that even after the fact the animal is examined, it may not be slaughtered in Egypt. According to this, the allowance granted in the case of a firstborn was born with its blemish can only after the fact, as argued by Rav Nachman, and not ab initio as maintained by Rav Huna. Why then does Abaye accept the opinion of the latter and not the former? Shabbat Machazol. V'ika shehach. The Gemara asks, but if so, the Beitzah decided earlier, which presents these halachot differently. It is difficult. The Gemara answers, this does not pose a problem, as that Beitzah was taught out of our ukmei, I like that, who would often confuse the opinions in the text and teach an inaccurate version of the dispute. Therefore, his version is unreliable. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak said, the Mishnah is also precise in its wording according to the opinion that no blemish may be examined ab initio. As the Mishnah teaches, Rabbi Shimon says, even if the animal has a blemish, it is prohibited to slaughter it, since any firstborn animal whose blemish is not perceptible on the eve of the festival, while it is still day, is not considered to be among the animals prepared prior to the festival for use on the festival. What is the meaning of the phrase, whose blemish is not perceptible? If we say that its blemish is not perceptible at all, it is obvious. Need it be said that an animal whose blemish was not perceptible at all prior to the festival is not considered prepared for use on the festival? Rather, one may say that the animal had a perceptible blemish, but it was not shown to a sage on the eve of the festival to determine whether it is a permanent blemish or a temporary blemish. In any event, the Mishnah teaches it is not considered to be among the animals prepared prior to the festival for use on the festival, which indicates that it is not considered prepared even after the fact. It follows that the allowance granted in the case of a firstborn that was born with its blemish is also only after the fact, but the blemish may not be examined ab initio. The Gemara concludes, indeed, learn from this that it is so. Hillel raised a dilemma before Rava. Is there prohibition of muktzah for half Shabbat, or is there no prohibition of muktzah for half of Shabbat? The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances of this case? If an item was fit for eating, or for some other purpose, at twilight between Friday and Shabbat, it would be fit for the entire Shabbat. And if it was not twilight, if it was not fit for the entire day, is anything considered muktzah at twilight? It remains so throughout Shabbat. How then could there be a case of an item that is considered muktzah for half of Shabbat? The Gemara explains, no, it is necessary to raise this dilemma as in a case where an item had once been fit for use and then became disqualified on Shabbat for some reason, and then once it became fit. It is about such a case that Hillel asked, what is the halacha? Rava said to Hillel, there is a prohibition of muktzah for half of Shabbat. That is to say, once an item becomes disqualified for use on Shabbat, it remains that status for the rest of the day. Hillel raised an objection from the previously cited Beitzah that taught, and Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon agree that the animal was born with its blemish is considered to be among the animals prepared before the festival for use on the festival. But why should this be? Let us say as follows. This firstborn was fit at the outset to be eaten on account of its mother, as had its mother been slaughtered before giving birth to the firstborn, it would have been permitted to eat them both. This being the case, when the firstborn was born, it became disqualified, since once the firstborn is born, it may not be eaten until it acquires a permanent blemish, and later he showed it to a sage. It once again became permitted to him. This shows that although the animal had the status of muktzah for part of the festival, it did not retain that status the entire day. Abaye said, and some say it was Rav Sofer who said, here the Beitzah is referring to a case where judges were sitting there, observing the firstborn as it was being born, and they immediately saw that it was blemished. Therefore, the animal never lost its permitted status, even for a moment. Some say that Rava said the opposite to Hillel. There is no prohibition for half of Shabbat. That is to say, even if an item becomes disqualified for use on Shabbat, once it becomes fit again, it is no longer prohibited. The Gemara responds, let us say that the previously cited Beitzah supports Rava, and Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon agree that if the animal is born with its blemish, it is considered to be among the animals prepared before the festival for use on the festival. But wasn't this firstborn fit to be eaten at the outset on account of its mother? And then when it was born, it became disqualified, and then later, when he showed it to a sage, it once again became permitted to him. This indicates that for half of Shabbat, there is no prohibition of muktzah. Is there something that's half muktzah? Abaye said, some say it was Rav Sofer who said this proof is inconclusive, as the Beitzah may be referring to a case where judges were sitting there when the firstborn was born, and they immediately saw it was blemished. Therefore, the animal never acquired the status of muktzah at all. Come in here, proof from a different Beitzah. If one was eating grapes, you know what? Can we do it? Let's do it. Yeah, let's go for it. If one was eating grapes and leftovers and took them up to the roof to dry in order to make them into raisins, or if he was eating figs and left some over and he took them up to the roof in order to make them dried figs, he may not eat from them on Shabbat unless he designates them as food to be eaten while it is still day. Otherwise, they are prohibited as muktzah, and you would find the same with regard to peaches and quinces and other types of fruit that one left out to dry. It is prohibited to eat them on Shabbat due to the prohibition of muktzah. The Gemara proceeds to clarify the Beitzah. What are the circumstances? If they are fit to be eaten as they have already dried, then why does it require designation? Since he placed them in order to eat them after they dry, they should be considered food that has been designated to be eaten. If they are not fit to be eaten, and as they are not yet dry, even if he designates them the day before, what of it? Of what use is such a designation, seeing that the fruit is still unfit to be eaten? And if you say the Beitzah is referring to a case where he could not ascend to the roof to examine them, and therefore he did not know whether they were fit or unfit, so that his designation was conditional, there is a difficulty. As didn't Rav Kahana say, if a fruit had been set aside for drying, and it dried and became fit for eating before Shabbat, but the owner did not know about it before Shabbat, but only on Shabbat, the fruit is permitted, since he removed it from his mind only as long as it would be unfit for eating. Rather, is the Beitzah not referring to a case where the fruits were fit and then became disqualified, and then once again became fit, and therefore they have the status of muktzah? And if you say that there is no prohibition of muktzah for half of Shabbat, why do they require prior designation? The Gemara refutes this argument. Rather, what then do you say? That there is in fact a prohibition of muktzah for half of Shabbat? In that case, if he designates them the day before, what of it? How does his designation permit that which is prohibited as muktzah? The Gemara answers no. The Beitzah is necessary for a case where the fruits were fit, but not completely fit, meaning that there are people who eat them in that state, and there are other people who do not eat them. Therefore, if he designated them as food to be eaten, he has revealed his intention that he is included among those who do eat them. And if he did not designate them as food, he has not revealed his intention. Therefore, no proof can be adduced from here. Rabbi Zera said, come and hear a resolution to the problem raised above from the halacha governing beans and lentils cooked on a festival. As beans and lentils at the outset, at twilight, when they are still raw and uncooked, are fit to be chewed as they are, and are therefore not in the category of muktzah. Then, when he casts them into the pot to cook them, they become disqualified because while they are being cooked, they are fit neither to be chewed raw nor to be eaten cooked.